Welcome to The Arena, your favorite sports show that gives you the best of sporting information as well as the commercial aspects of things. I'm Samson Lady, your host for the show, and I'm not doing this alone. I've got a guest right here with me talking about Ojabowale Afolabi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Yes, the show today, I'm excited about it because we're doing something a bit different. Yes, we're looking at MMA, mixed martial arts. It's a kind of sport that is becoming popular in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, courtesy of three men who are making us proud on the world stage. On the other side of the break, you get to know about the three men, and you also get to know about what MMA is and what it entails. Just stick around.
Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, yeah. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, yeah, for clean wash and quick delivery. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, for clean wash and quick delivery. Ooh.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still The Arena right here from the studios of iBrandTV. Now let's delve straight into things. MMA, what's it about? You get to hear it's mixed martial arts. Is it the same as kickboxing? Why is there a cage around? There's so many questions, so many of you are, asking. And we have an expert here who to answer all of those questions. Afolabi, let's delve into the thick of things straight up. What's MMA? Maybe I should start with that because I don't know. To the layman watching, what is MMA?
MMA is mixed martial arts.
Okay.
And what mixed martial arts is, you're mixing all the martial arts. You're bringing wrestling into the table. You're bringing boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu. You're bringing all of that into the table. So there is, even though there are some rules that you don't cross, there are some lines you don't cross, like you don't headbutt someone, you don't bite someone, you don't kick someone like below the belt. Yeah, so, but it's bringing all these martial arts into one unified sport.
Wow. In other words, MMA, basically it's like a combination of all of these sports.
Yes, all of these combat sports, yes it is.
Some folks have deemed it barbaric or too violent. What do you say?
Okay, so to people who say it's barbaric, boxing has had a lot more deaths.
Well,
actually, not even a lot more deaths.
Well,
there's been no deaths in the UFC, like UFC related deaths, like over the years. Because if they were when the UFC came to when it started in the US, the Senates were concerned about, okay, this kind of sports, you're kicking people to the head, won't they die on TV? Is that what people want to see? So they did a lot of research into it. They monitored them. The UFC invested in healthcare of their fighters. So even before you go on a fight, they test you to see, can you actually make the fight? If you have like a heart problem or a brain
you're not fit enough
you're
medically.
not fit enough, yes, they cancel the fight. So they take good care of their fighters. That's why there's been no fatalities.
Well, that can be countered because boxing does the same thing. I mean, you have boxers go for routine tests beyond the random test for drugs. They also go for tests with regards to probably hearts, eyes and what have you. That's the reason, Errol Spence Jr. couldn't take on Manny Pacquiao in July. Because a routine test just found out that he had a tear in his right retina. So, boxers or boxing also does that. So, come on, give me another reason.
Well, it's a lot more interesting, so let's just start. Because in boxing, you're just using 4 or 5 tools, but in mixed martial arts, there are a lot more tools to you. If your stand-up is not good, you can wrestle the person, take him to the ground, and submit him.
Okay, because we want this to be as educative as possible, so let's get down to the basics. Oh, and by the way, I must chip in, he's also good at boxing. Anything has to do with fights, don't worry, he's the man to meet. So, you mentioned earlier 5 tools in boxing and lots more in MMA.
Okay.
So maybe before we delve into that, is there a difference between MMA and UFC for those who don't know?
Yes, so it's like saying football, for example. There is the English Premiership. Football is the sport, English Premiership is the league.
Okay.
MMA is the sport, UFC
is the league. Oh,
so the same way there's UFC, there's Bellator, there's one championship.
Okay.
And
So
even in South Africa, there's
a new, fighting championship. Okay, so for those who do not know as well, UFC is Ultimate Fighting Championship. There you have it. So the question: what are the tools? You mentioned 5 earlier for boxing.
Yes.
That relatively about 5 tools being used. What are the tools for boxing, and how many do we have for UFC? Can you name them?
Okay, so the major tools for boxing, like you have your jab, you have your hook, you have your cross, the overhand, jab to the body. Like it's basically
Basics.
just that. So, but for mixed martial arts,
Yes.
you can kick to the body, you can kick to the head. There are different types of kicks. There are leg kicks. Leg kicks is when you target like your opponent's legs, and even the leg kicks is broken down into like further like. There are some kicks that go to the upper part of the, like
body.
the thighs. So there's just a whole lot more. So and even if, and that's just a stand up. You can take your opponent down to the ground using your wrestling, and when you take them down to the ground, it's usually not a lot very interesting to the fans because they usually boo the fighters who do that. When you take them to the ground, you have more opportunities to like ground and pound, use your elbows. In boxing, you can't use your elbows. You can use your knees to their face or to their body. So
we've seen lots of flying knees.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot
of techniques. In other words, for you to be a boxer, you're probably taught few things with regards to footwork, your stance, and then head movements, reflex, and the jabs. But when it comes to UFC, you have to be like an all-rounder because it's not just about the boxing, there's also the wrestling aspect of things.
Yes, so you see when boxers come to mixed martial arts, they're usually in that because they use their boxing stance. Boxing stance, you're usually lead leg heavy.
Yeah.
So this other person, if he's a mixed martial arts, is not going to bother trying to jab or do anything. He's going to target your lead leg because as a boxer, you hold your lead leg forward, and someone that is a good kicker will kick you, stay at distance, you're not going to reach him.
We saw that with Israel Adesanya and then Paulo Costa,
yes,
where the calf was taken apart. The same thing happened with Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, and with regards to the calf.
Yes.
So I think with regards to leg kicks, as you mentioned, it seems the lower leg is targeted more often than the upper leg.
Yes, but also there's also like a caveat to that,
which is
there have been fights where you try to kick someone, but then they check it properly, and then you break your leg instead.
Does that explain Conor McGregor's leg? Because it seemed like an airline fracture. It seemed like a double fracture. We can't show that. We're sorry. That's
very graphic.
Quite graphic. It's horrific. Let's put it that way. It's extremely gory. So we really can't show you that. But we've seen fractures like that. Does that explain what happened to Conor McGregor and McGregor in the rematch against Dustin Poirier?
Yes, but in Conor McGregor's case, the problem started for him in training. Apparently, so he suffered a fracture, but he kind of like.
Because it was airline fracture?
Yeah, so he thought like he had recovered from it. So when Dustin checked his kick, it's kind of like triggered it, and then
let's leave it like that. Let's leave it like that. Okay. We've talked about leg kicks. We've talked about the wrestling aspect of things, so as to gain advantage in terms of pounding, elbows, and what have you. Is UFC quite popular in Africa? And why I'm saying that is, we now have 3 African, champions. I mentioned that during the intro. Those are the men that are probably propagating the gospel, of the sports within Africa.
Okay, so as a sport in Africa, it's really not one of the top sports. It's definitely not.
Football is the open.
So, like the actual person that made it a little bit more popular. was Israel Adesanya. You know, when he came on stage, he was always speaking Yoruba.
Yeah.
Like, I'm beating these people, Nigeria. Like, he was giving Nigeria a shout out. Then, a couple of months later, Usman became the first African
world
champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with his win, more people wanted to like watch. This guy's fight. Then Ngannou did the save and beat Stipe Miocic in the rematch. So with that, it has brought a little bit more eyes in this part of Africa, because in South Africa they actually have like a fighting championship. In South Africa, it's already like a sport, one of their pastimes. So, but in this part of the world, we have other fighters, other Nigerian fighters. So we have Sadiq Yusuf, we have Min Akim. So even Min Akim used to come to the octagon with his Canadian flag before, but now with Israel Adesanya, Usman, all of these people doing is bringing his Nigerian flag to the octagon now. So it's steadily growing at a good pace. So probably in the next couple of years, it should be a lot more popular in Africa.
Afolabi, let's delve into the financial aspect of things. It was a bit of a shock, you know, after his win over Yugi Masvidal, that Kamaru Usman earned a paltry $1 million from that fight. And this is someone who is the defending champion, is unbeaten, has 18 or 19 match winning streak. With pay-per-view, why $1 million to boxing is... What happened?
So, Usman is the number one.
Yeah, in the world.
So, it's the payments for the UFC, it's kind of paltry compared to boxing. Mostly because in boxing there's a lot more like promoters coming to the table, pulling in. It's kind of like a pool of money. So the UFC is just one organization, and well, as an organization, they have to look after number one, and number one is the organization. So, according to Dana White, when you ask him these questions, like why do fighters make such little pay? I think it's just 16% of their annual income that fighters get. He will tell you, oh, he's building medical centers, he's investing the money in training and all of that. So, well, as sports continue to grow, I'm sure more people earn Conor McGregor money.
Well, but you even look at the so-called Conor McGregor's, records, financial earnings in the octagon. It's still paltry when you compare it to what the likes of Floyd Mayweather earned. Moreover,
the amount of money made in the Floyd Mayweather fight.
Mayweather gave him his highest payday.
Yes, it did.
What can be done to improve? I understand the place of Dana White saying he's investing in medical facilities and other things, but when it comes to training centers, gyms, and what have you, don't you think it's high time players have their own or had their own gyms?
Fighters have their gyms, but not every fighter can afford to like set up a proper gym. So that's why like the UFC PI is there in Las Vegas. So if you're a fighter, just come in. Basically, that's what the PI is for. You have trainers already to train you. So you can actually train with other UFC fighters there. You had a couple of videos a couple of months ago when Valentina Shevchenko was preparing for a fight. She trained with Brandon Moreno, who is the flyweight champion, and they just randomly met the PI and trained together. So the one thing that I will tell you to do if you want to earn more money is to basically build your brand outside of the UFC, like outside of so it's like what's his name now?
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor, like his style of talking, the way he trash talks and does all of those things.
Bullish, and all.
So even the Mayweather fight, that was his biggest payday, and it is still his biggest payday till date. Even against Khabib Nurmagomedov,
he didn't earn that much.
So
because Mayweather is the face of any show, any fight.
So you see people like Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
When he left the UFC and went to fight boxing, that was his biggest payday. Fight against Jake Paul, like that was his biggest payday. And you're fighting Jake Paul, who is
like a nobody.
Right. So it's a huge concern for a lot of fighters because of the risk they also go through. Most of them, by the time they pay tax
and pay their coaching crews, there's really little left.
So, well, we just hope it gets better.
Okay. Quick one before we take this break. Do you think that as a result of the paltry earnings they get from UFC, that would see more fighters maybe change sports to boxing or something else? We've seen Tyron Woodley, we've seen Conor McGregor, try it, and these guys are now aiming for more of such, paydays or paychecks.
Yes, I see it happening 100% because even right now you see active UFC fighters calling out boxers. You see Ngannou calling out Fury, like, let's fight. And Fury's like, no. So it's just, yeah, it's definitely going to happen. It's going to keep happening.
Wow, let's get on this commercial break. When we return, there's still so much to talk about with regards to the MMA and UFC. Do stick around.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin. Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. I've found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neil. I found Blemiviv, and now my skin finally makes sense.
Welcome back. It's still the arena right here from iBrand Studios in Lagos, Nigeria, and we're still looking at the MMA. Now it's time to look forward to upcoming matches at the UFC, and our own Usman Kamaru will be facing Covington in a rematch. The last time out, he broke Covington's jaw. This time around, the big question is, can Usman Kamaru make it a second successive win over Covington? What do you think?
Definitely. Since the last fight, Usman has fought 3 times, and in every fight he has showed massive improvements in his stand-up, his boxing. Like he defeated Gilbert Burns, who is a black belt jiu-jitsu, and he beats him comprehensively. He rematched Jorge Masvidal, and he beats him he knocked him out in the second round. So for Covington, he has only fought once, and he fought the washed-up Tyron Woodley. Like, he just gave Tyron Woodley his goodbye from the UFC. So he hasn't really shown that much improvement compared to Usman. So yes, I truly believe Usman is going to beat him.
Okay, for Usman, last time, as I said, he earned $1 million. The rematch with Masvidal. Do you think it would earn within that region of probably 1.5, pay-per-views and all of that coming in?
This is a highly anticipated rematch, and rematches, especially when they are close, like the first one, and tend to gain a lot more views. So
possibly within a region of $2 million.
No. Okay, so the views itself will probably be like 1.2 million. Okay. So from his own earnings, it will probably earn about 2 million. Yes.
2 million thereabout. Yes. Okay.
This is base salary. Let's
look at the light heavyweight division. Sometimes it's better to just, as they say in local parlance, stay your lane. Our own Israel Adesanya, middleweight champion, tried his hands in the light heavyweight division, and he got out-wrestled, let me put it that way, in a more lenient term. He got out-wrestled by Jan Blachowicz, and now you have Blachowicz playing and fighting. What do you make of his upcoming fight?
Okay, so this was the fight that was supposed to happen before Israel Adesanya jumped the line. Glover Teixeira has been only, he's an old man, he's about 41. So he put together a winning streak that ended in this fight. So I expect him. He's a huge wrestler and has excellent jiu-jitsu. So he's going to use that. His stand-up is not so great. Okay. So Blachowicz part of victory is to stand up with him, unlike the way he did against Israel, where he was taking Israel down. He's going to use his strikes, and well, it's going to be a tough match. But I truly believe Blachowicz will.
You just mentioned a man who is 41 years old who is about to fight, and that brings me to the question: how safe is it at that age to still be fighting in the UFC that has so much beyond boxing? There's the wrestling aspect, the use of elbows, and all of that. How safe is it for someone who is in the 40s?
So age doesn't really factor in this particular situation because he's an active fighter.
Okay.
We have Anderson Silva, for example. Anderson Silva is 42.
Yes.
He left the UFC. He went over to boxing, and he's not fighting just anybody. Like, he's fighting perfectly well. So Glover Teixeira, he never takes. If you ask like his teammates, he doesn't take a day off in the gym. He's always there. So his body is conditioned more than an average. In an average 41-year-old, basically.
That's interesting. Work ethic you want to look at there. Let's look home now.
Yes.
How can UFC be developed in Nigeria and Africa as a whole in terms of having our own championship here and also producing more UFC fighters? So
Dana White in an interview said sometime next year, maybe 2022 or 2023, depending on how their logistics play out, that they were planning to hold an event in Africa. He didn't say where in Africa. So they fight it's likely going to be like a pay-per-view. It will be like testing ground, like okay, what's what happen if they actually like develop the sport here. So it's likely going to be Israel,
Kamaru,
like they'll just be like the headliner and the co-main event. So and to develop the sport for that, to get into the UFC, you have to like go to another country to train. So what the UFC has to do is to create the same things they are doing in Mexico, the same things they are doing in Saudi Arabia, the same things they are doing in Europe. Bring training centers here to Africa. So if you open a training center in Lagos, for example, people are going to go there.
Definitely.
Your coaches are going to see these people and then
spot the talents.
Exactly. And Dana White does this thing where he just randomly visits these PIs and sees, maybe he just watches a training session and says, okay, this guy is good, and then
bring him on board.
Yes, so
Dana White, I'm here. After one elbow, I'll just well, you have to understand that not everyone will play football or basketball or volleyball. That's why there's a full range of sporting activities that sport lovers and enthusiasts can engage in, especially those who look towards it for a career. And mixed martial arts is here to stay, it must be said, because it's growing rapidly in the United States and across the continent, basically talking about Europe and the Americas. So there's so much to look out for in terms of its growth in Africa. But with the likes of Kamaru Usman being a champion, as well as Israel Adesanya, Nigerians are also looking forward to and seeing that the sport expands its tentacles to not just the African region, but also to the country Nigeria. And you never can tell who the next Kamaru Usman will be, or the next Israel Adesanya. Now that's been how much we can take for today's edition of the show. Ojabo Wale Afolabi, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, do not forget, it's still MMA and the arena is the show. And it's coming to you live from iBrandTV. Do not change that channel because there's more content from where this came. I'm Samson Uloidi. Do stay blessed.